This is about a book. This is about St. Clair Lewis's 1922 novel called Babbit. This was about George Babbit, a middle-aged real estate broker in the fictional city of Zenith who embodies the conformist ideals. Now, uh, in the context of the novel, there was something called an open shop, which represented the post-World War I movement, which opposed labor unions. Businesses with an open shop did not require employees to be a union member. And that was used as a method to weaken the unions and reduce labor bargaining. George Babbit actively advocates for the open shop, anti-union, and aligned himself with local community and business organizations. He was a prominent booster of the Zenith. Now, I don't know if that meant vaccination. Anyway, he used his reputation as a public speaker to promote the interests of the business owners. He spoke out against labor unions and in favor of the open shop, which he viewed as the American way. Anti-union, the American way. That's very interesting. Says Babbit. Not anything. anything. The open shop is depicted as the central, hypocritical tenet of the business community in the fictional city of Zenith, acting as a thinly veiled anti-union campaign. George Babbit initially considers himself liberal, but ultimately conformed to the aggressive, anti-labor, anti-union stance of these local businessmen groups. The open shop is described as a movement supported by the Good League citizens that is secretly a struggle against all union labor, while the businessmen decry labor unions for forcing workers to join. They simultaneously demand that every business owner must be a member of their own groups, like the Chamber of Commerce, showing the wholesome sameness of thought. The goal and the aim of the movement, often coupled with an Americanization movement, is to keep the working class in their place and convince them to trust and love their employers rather than to unionize for their own benefit. After a brief dally with more liberal ideas, Babbit aligns with the Good Citizens League to maintain his social standing and appease his peers. Once aligned, Babbit became violent in his opposition to unions, labeling them as criminal. He referred to laborers as the common workmen and loafers in relations to strikes. The anti-union open shop stance is presented as part of 100% American, an ideology which demands loyalty to business interests and attacks any form of labor organizing, often associating it with radicals. It's anti-labor views of his peers, often labeling strikers as the bad people, destructive elements. The novel portrays this attitude as part of a shallow, hypocritical mindset, conformity, business interests over workers' rights. George Babbit briefly considered more liberal views, but is pressured by his peers to conform to the dominant anti-union sentiment. of the business community. It's called the Klan mentality. Babbit described the anti-union sentiment as a fight between sound business and destructive elements. It highlights how individuals in the fictional city of Zenith allow collective prejudices to dictate their beliefs. It does say the character is anti-union, but Sinclair, the author himself, in his own life, once supported the IWW, which is the International Workers of the World, a union. And at one point, he did join the Socialist Party of America. Here's a direct quote from Babbit. The League was more generous in approving other organizations which agreed with its aims. It helped the YMCA. It raised $200,000 fund for a new building. Babbit, Virgil Gunch, Sidney Finkelstein, and Charles McKelvey told the speculators at the movie theater how great the influence for manly Christianity, the good old Y, had been in their own lives, and the hoar and mighty Colonel Rutherford Snow, owner of the Advocate Times, was photographed clasping the hand of Shelton Smith of the YMCA. And it's true that afterward, when Smith lisped, "You must come to one of our prayer meetings," the ferocious Colonel bellowed, "What the hell would I do that for? I got a bar of my own." But this did not appear in public prints. The League was of value to the American Legion at the time when certain of the looser newspapers were criticizing the organization of veterans of the Great War. One evening, a number of young men raided the Zenith Social headquarters and burned its records, beat the office staff, and agreeably dumped desks out the window. All the newspapers, save the Advocate Times, in the evening Advocate attributed this valuable but perhaps hasty direct action to the American Legion. Then a flying squadron from the Good Citizens League called the unfair papers and explained that no something could possibly do such a thing. The editors saw the light and retained their advertising, and when Zenith's lone conscientious objector came home from prison and was righteously run out of town, the newspapers referred to the perpetrators as the unidentified mob. Sinclair Lewis is a biting satire, and it is a critique of American society, specifically aimed at the materialism, conformity, and narrow-mindedness of the 1920s middle-class businessmen. Rather than being anti-American propaganda, the novel acts as a scathing satire that exposes the flaws in the American dream to spur reflection rather than out of hatred for the country itself.